creaking so loudly she feared the animals would break free and leave the people in the contraption behind. 5 flags waving grandly from the top of a building, the crunch of grit between her teeth, dust rising through her nostrils. She covered her nose and mouth, and as she drew the folded square of cloth from her face, she saw the blood on it, and upon further hurried patting, understood that it came from her nose. "This city sure enough gon' kill me," she thought. Still, she relished every moment. And the water, so many boats and ships like nothing she had ever seen. A city's lines etched by roads and waterways, sweating Irish stevedores unloading lumber schooners, while colored men huddled nearby, watching for injury or exhaustion, or a skirmish loud enough to send the offenders home. And Madge, amidst it all, daringly alone, a free-born woman hovering near the pier, watching as passenger pigeons descended by the dozens. She moved about unmolested, freely, wearing a bright orange neck scarf she'd found in the street 2 days before. Back in Tennessee, such a scarf might have been taken for hubris. But in the garish city, colors, even on a Negro woman, were just a quiet wink. She turned, almost walking straight into the wheels of a carriage. The driver shouted at her, and she laughed, reveling in the city's spirit, brimming with the effervescence of the newly baptized. She walked. For a long time, Sadie felt like a visitor to another country. The train had belched her onto the city's shores without so much as kith and kin to greet her, and she'd struggled to find her legs. The place was far enough removed from York to impress upon her the uncertainty of a future without a husband. But it would be some time before she understood that keeping alive the spirits of the lost sat in perfect order within that immortal city. With its tall grain elevators, winding canal, and trestled bridges, it hummed. Draymen and horse cars and lake steamers, dead rats lining ditches where sludge-filled water traveled on its way to the river. Its fragility, plank roads and leaning shanties, pine sidewalks and marble-faced buildings with wooden shake roofs, subsumed by an ever-increasing sense of its fortitude. Everything, it appeared, coexisted as an irresolvable contradiction, a trait Sadie would come to see in herself as well, long after she'd accepted the place as home. The railroad and telegraph worked to adjust the people's sense of the clock, and perhaps because of this, she and the other mediums would be able to convince them that time was more fluid than they imagined, the other side just a ticking away from this one. "Death is not the end," she would tell them. But hope withered in a city where cholera picked off entire families. Men marched off to war never to return, and thousands of cattle were slaughtered in vast stockyards. She had heard that over 3,000 miles of railroad touched the city like the arms of some mythical creature, but she did not enjoy knowing that number because it seemed to emphasize the distance between this lakefront city and the Pennsylvania town that birthed her. Yet those awe-inspiring trains, slamming their brakes in a rush of steam, huffing like hulking shovers, reminded her of the impending sense of everything hurtling recklessly forward. It thrilled and frightened, entranced and repulsed. It was both a nascent Romish state and a virulent pest hole. She journeyed to the city 2 weeks after he'd gone ahead to prepare their home, traveling on solemn boxcars filled with anxious faces dashing from one town to the next. Her hand shook the entire time, and she did not know if it was the rolling landscape outside the window or the train's constant rocking that made her feel.